Hello and welcome to Real Watchers Movie Club. My name is Garrett,
And I'm Kevin.
and we are your hosts. Movie Club is a show where we pick a movie every week and discuss it, just like a book club. On today's show, we're covering the mafia drama sequel, The Godfather Part 2. Our thoughts and more coming up on Movie Club. Released in 1974, The Godfather Part 2 was directed by Francis Ford Coppola and stars Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, and Robert Duvall. In the continuing saga of the Corleone crime family, a young Vito Corleone grows up in Sicily and in 1910's New York. In the 1950s, Michael Corleone attempts to expand the family business into Las Vegas, Hollywood, and Cuba. It is currently ranked 4 on IMDb's Top 250 and has a 4.6 out of 5 on Letterboxd and is ranked number 5 on its Top 250. It was nominated for 5 Academy Awards, including Best Costume Design, Best Supporting Actress for Talia Shire, Best Supporting Actor for Lee Strasberg and Michael V. Gazzo, and Best Actor for Al Pacino. It won 6 for Best Original Score, Best Art Direction, Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Supporting Actor for Robert De Niro, Best Director, and Best Picture. Before we dive into our thoughts, though, we do want to issue a spoiler warning for the film. We are going to be talking about everything that happens in it and spoiling some major things that happen. So if you haven't seen the film before, go ahead and watch it and then come back here so then we can actually not ruin the movie for you. But of course, stay tuned to the end of the show to find out what we're covering next week because, as always, it's going to be a good one. Okay, Kevin, and of course we come to the sequel now, Godfather Part 2, widely considered to be one of the best sequels ever made. And many people outside of our little circle here consider it to be better than the original, and we will find out for ourselves if that's what we think coming up here. But quick mention before we get started, you may hear some fans going on my end of the recording. They're going to have to be on because it's way too hot in my room right now. Not going to live without them. So just warning you in case you're wondering what that noise is. But obviously, we picked The Godfather because one of the best films of all time, one of the most highly regarded. And of course, the sequel is also very highly regarded and is also in the IMDb and Letterboxd Top 250s. So we had to cover it as well. Might as well do it right after the first one.
Yep.
So, but Kevin, this was your first time seeing the film.
Yes.
So what did you think?
I might be on the minority as it didn't catch me, didn't pull me in and drag me in like the first one did. Still, very good movie though. I don't want to put this out there like it's the worst sequel ever, but it was a good movie. It just didn't grab me like the first one did.
Yeah, and I think, I can totally see how that would be the case. I think that this is more, it is still a personal film, don't get me wrong, but I think it's more epic in the fact that it has more time frames. It certainly goes for a wider attempt at the story.
Yeah.
But then also, it is longer. It is almost 3.5 hours, and it can be a little bit of a slog to get through. Depending on what kind of mood you're in and whatever may be going on. But as for me, I think this movie is fantastic. I think that it is great for different reasons than the first, right?
Okay.
Obviously, the first one is a much more personal tale about the immediate family in one time frame. I mean, there's a little bit of a time jump while Michael's in Italy, but here and now with Part 2, you're seeing things happen at the turn of the century in the 1900s in New York and in Sicily, but then you're also seeing the 50s kind of into the 60s almost with Michael leading the family. And so, yeah, I mean, it's definitely grander, and I think that can both aid and hurt the movie at the same time.
And I can see that because when in my first initial watching of this movie, it did go from Italy to where Michael was staying a lot of the time. Just, I wouldn't say seamlessly, but it was just like a quick cut to them going to Italy and then going back. So maybe I did get a little bit of lost in that story because sometimes I was getting up to get a drink of water thinking that I could miss this part, but obviously
then you have to end up going back and
exactly.
Yeah, totally get you there. But yeah, so let's go ahead and dig in a little bit. I think we should probably talk about the things that are that carry over from the first, and I think that among that, the one thing that we didn't talk about last time as much, and we should talk about this time, is the music.
Hmm.
The score is incredible for
Yeah.
both of these movies. Starting out with the main theme is always just going to be iconic with the trumpet,
Mhm.
and Nino Rota's score is just incredible. Really nice to see that he won this time around for the
Yeah.
score. Unfortunately, he was nominated for the first one, but the nomination was then deemed. I'm trying to think the word here that they disqualified him because the score used pieces of existing music
Oh.
and it's best original score. So
Oh, okay.
there's yeah, but which sucks because like it's literally one of the most identifiable themes
Yeah.
now, obviously, of all time. But you know, at the time, it was just a very good score. Here, though,
Hmm.
it is fantastic having to encapsulate two very different men because Michael and Vito are very different from each other,
Yep. Hmm.
which is what we'll talk about a little bit later. But yeah, the score is fantastic, but also again, the cinematography is still perfect.
Yeah, it
Like
is so
it
good.
yeah, it's the textbook. Like if you're going to be, you know, looking into doing cinematography for a career or becoming a director of photography, whatever, like these are the movies you should watch. Like
Hmm.
obviously watch the ones that stand out to you and speak to your style and influence the way that you're going to be. But like these are just so perfectly done.
Because you can
Um,
get little hints from this movie
yeah.
just to elaborate on what you want to put onto the screen. That's a lot, and especially coming from a 1974 movie, and we're talking about how good the shots are. Is
Hmm.
it still holds up to this day, obviously. So that's why we're saying it.
Yeah, 100%.
Hmm.
So I mean, and then obviously we did talk about it with the awards earlier, but getting best art direction. I mean, again, the
Yep.
world this takes place in, you can tell they're two different times,
Hmm.
and but they also feel very similar, and I think that's the key of good production and art design because you know you can tell that you're in the same world, you can tell that you're dealing with the same characters, but just different time periods, and it's so well
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. It is. It is. I love. You said there was a costume design
They were
nominee,
nominated,
correct?
yeah.
Yeah. Which that's great too. I think they were
Hmm.
nominated for the first movie too, correct? If I'm
I
not
believe
mistaken.
so.
Yeah. But yeah, the, the costumes. We didn't talk about this in the first one too, but the period correct costumes in this movie is stunning because that's what they would wear back in the day when this started happening. And even the cars around them are just like old school, and I like old school cars like that, but keeping it more in the olden days pretty much it's just always a nice touch to see that somebody actually took the time to figure out what they would do back in the day and how they would wear it, and not just like, hey, slap a suit on him and get him out of here, like stuff
Yeah,
like that.
there is extensive research that goes into these, and obviously, being in the '70s, you're with a lot of people who may have been around during those times,
Hmm.
but also, you know, I don't know if it was as common then as it was like now, but having ex mafia people coming in and showing accuracy. I don't know
Yeah.
if that was as big of a thing as it is now. Obviously, we have a lot
Hmm.
of experts that are on staff for things like this,
Hmm. Hmm.
um, but it just feels so incredibly genuine and of the time. And I did want to double check that. So the first movie was nominated for costume design as well, but it was a different costume design lead.
Oh,
Not
okay.
that it really feels different. I mean, both
No.
films, they feel very similar,
Hmm.
um, yet they feel of their time, right? Because this is not the '40s; it's the '50s now, and you know, you have the
Hmm.
1910s, obviously with Robert De Niro.
Yeah.
Which let's go ahead. Another thing that carries over from the first one: how good the goddamn performances are.
Oh yeah. Oh, I mean, I was expecting it to be good because the first one was so good. I was like, yeah, lay it on me. Let's get these characters, keep them rolling, and see what they can do with them, pretty much, and how to elaborate the story a lot more, especially with the 3 hour and 20-minute time frame that we have. What
Mhm.
can't they do in that time frame is what I was trying to figure out.
Yeah, and I think that kind of digging a little bit more into the actual performances, I think this is Al Pacino's best character, in my opinion. I haven't seen Scarface, so I can't judge that.
I prefer him in this than Scarface.
Well, there you go, straight from Kevin's mouth.
Mhm.
But yeah, I think he is just absolutely incredible, and it just encapsulates and embodies Michael Corleone in such a unique way. And I remember after seeing this for the first time when I was in high school, I believe, and reading the original book, and all I could see were the actors as these characters, and and it's still the case because they do such a good job. Obviously, everyone around him is still doing great. Diane Keaton is still great as his wife. I believe Talia Shire, who was nominated for supporting actress, I believe is his sister. Let me go ahead and double check that. Yep, that is of course his sister. Like there really, again, there isn't a weak member of the cast. Like everyone is doing so well. But I think this time around specifically, I do want to say that Robert De Niro is incredible.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So it's hard to say what he didn't do right because of how good it was. Especially I don't know, he just seems like at the end of The Godfather, he was going to be the Godfather pretty much, but you didn't know how he was going to act as the Godfather, and that's what I was most anticipated on seeing as how De Niro would act as the Godfather, and he knocked it out of the park with this one.
Well, specifically as Vito, right?
As Vito, yeah.
Yeah, who was Marlon Brando in the first movie,
Mhm.
and does a very, very good job of playing the character. I think he does just as good a job as Marlon Brando does, but obviously playing the same character just in a different time period.
Yeah.
Absolutely brilliant. But yeah, and again, everyone else in the cast really just feels like they were perfectly made for their roles, which, you know, gotta hand it to the 70s. They could cast at least for these two movies. It's just unfortunate that a lot of this didn't carry over into the third movie, which everyone kind of it's not like a terrible movie by any means, but like when the first two are some of like the best movies of all time, and the third one just doesn't quite match up.
Yeah,
you know, I think that's when a lot of people can get disappointed. I actually have the new kind of side comment here. I do have the Death of Michael Corleone, or the Godfather Coda, which is like the re-edit of the third part. I have that separately from the trilogy, and so I'm interested in checking both those out to see what those are, because I still haven't seen the third movie.
Okay.
So it might be worth talking about. We won't talk about it here on Movie Club because it's not on any of the 250s or anything. But
maybe on the live stream when you watch it.
Maybe, yeah, I mean, where we can both watch it. Just if we're both
every
curious.
Wednesdays.
Yeah, there you go. Hey, good plug.
Good plug.
Kevin's doing his job. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, we're getting paid?
Yeah, right. I wish. But I do want to go ahead and talk about what makes part two. And I do want to address a little bit of a weak point for the movie.
Okay.
And I do think that it is something that the first movie did better, and I think that you may agree. And I think that like length isn't necessarily the problem. I don't think that the movie being too long is a problem. So. Like there's a lot you can do with 3.5 hours, and they do a lot, and I do hand them that. But I do think that the pacing is a little bit slow.
Yes.
This movie feels more slower. It feels more methodical.
I put in my review.
Oh, good.
Oh, I was gonna say, I think in my review I put like the action doesn't really start until like the second act. The action doesn't start, and that it kind of
you get a couple of things in its first act, but nothing crazy.
Like the way The Godfather dragged me and was like, oh, so you need this, and it's like, oh, what does he need? Like, does he really need help with that? Like, you think it through, and it's making you think throughout the whole wedding scene about what happened. This one, it does have some action parts, but I like the way in the first one there was action, but it wasn't gunfire action. It was like the hospital scene. Oh, we got to move my dad because I know someone's coming to kill him, blah blah blah. Like that's action to me. Even doesn't have guns or hand-to-hand combat, but it's more of that suspense action. I feel like, and this one does
Yeah.
it has bits and pieces of it, but the first one does it better for me.
Yeah, and I think that by telling a little bit more of a personal story and more like, I don't want to say grounded because the whole thing feels grounded, but like more intimate is where
Hmm.
this film goes, and I think that that is what maybe can shoo some people away, and I think that is what really also brings a lot of people in because this movie is higher ranked on Letterboxd, and
Hmm.
a lot of people consider this to be better than the first one, and maybe it's because it's more intimate, it's more, you know, kind of like a holding a mirror up between Vito and Michael, right?
Yeah.
Which is obviously it's not for everyone, but it is
Hmm.
still just very good.
Hmm.
Um, but I agree. I think that it does slow a little bit, and um, that does make it. I'm gonna say it. I really like this movie, but I don't think it's just a couple points off the first one, um, because of
Hmm.
because of that specific reason. I just feel like it doesn't feel as well paced, right? Like the first movie, like when only looking back at it now, like the first 30 minutes, 45 minutes is the wedding,
Yeah,
but it
but
doesn't
there
feel
was
like that.
no. I
This
probably could
really
have told
did
you
feel like it.
the wedding was probably like a 10-minute thing. No, it goes on for what? Like yeah, like you said 30-45 minutes, but you're so enthralled in what's
Yeah,
happening and you're meeting all of these new characters and people and meeting uh Corleone, the Corleones pretty much, and you get to meet Michael for the first time who doesn't want to be there but
yeah,
is there because of the family. And then you think to yourself, well, why doesn't he want to be there? Well, he's a veteran and everything like that, and he doesn't want to get caught up in the family, and then he does.
yeah.
So I and I don't know, I feel like he doesn't do the best Godfather as in Godfather 1 though. I feel like I like the first Godfather instead of Michael's Godfather, in my opinion.
Sure. I think Michael is a far more complex and um, kind of at odds with himself Godfather
Hmm.
as compared to Vito, who like obviously we don't get a whole lot of time with him as Marlon Brando's age,
Hmm.
but and I would have liked to have seen more time with him to kind of understand more that he was going through, which is kind of
Hmm.
just a wishful thinking thing, right? Like I would like to see more, and that's a good thing. But I think it's just a different Godfather, and obviously that's the whole point. You can't just have the same exact thing over again.
Hmm. Hmm.
But that does want to lead me into um, kind of what really works about this movie, and that is the difference between him and Vito,
Yeah.
because that's what the interesting part of this story is, right? Michael is taking a different path, right? We hear him talk with his wife about wanting to make the business legitimate and kind of not running it the same way. And in
Hmm.
many ways, this is, you know, counterintuitive to the way that Vito was doing it, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, Vito's running it. It's a family. It is more idealistic. It is passionate. It is it's a group that serves each other and it serves the family and it serves the family's interest, right? And I think
Yeah.
with Michael, you definitely get more of it's a business, right? It's
Yeah.
not just the family business; it is a business, right? And when you
Hmm.
go to make it legitimate, you you do kind of lose what Vito had been pushing for with when he was running it, right? You
Yeah.
almost get this turn towards capitalism, right? Like it's more about the business and more about making money and
Hmm.
less about the violence. At least at first, that's how the movie begins.
Yes.
Um, but like that's just it's just so fascinating because it's just like again we saw the you know what happened to Michael in the first one in his
Hmm.
journey,
Yeah.
and it's an interesting turn for him to be trying to make it go legitimate instead of carrying it on. And obviously, things change when you get revenge and you completely wipe out the
The other
people that
family.
were
Yeah.
causing issues for you. But I think that the decision he's making makes sense. But is he going about it the right way?
Hmm.
That's kind of up for you to decide.
And I think that's a nice way to put you put that. It's up for you to decide because when I think about it now is the first when is it Al? It's not Al Pacino. That's the Godfather in the first one. He's Michael, right?
He's Michael.
Right?
Yeah. The
Yeah.
Godfather in the first one's Marlon Brando.
Marlon Brando in the first Godfather. I wanted to see how he would deal with what Michael was going through, because I think he would have played it off as in a like what you're saying, not the business way, but a family business way, and not being so like we need to eliminate people, but we need to talk to them. We need to get them on our side and not just brute force his way into the situation or business that he's proposing. So I wanted to see kind of a little bit more of Brando in the first one to see if he relates to Michael, or does that rub off on Michael in the second one, if that makes sense.
No, yeah, totally. And I think that, there's a lot that Michael can learn from his father, but then also a lot that he has to change because it is the time, the times were changing. Their
Okay.
competition was killed after the first one, and so
Hmm.
it's definitely different. But I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
Alrighty, Kevin. So let's go ahead and kind of talk about our final thoughts and scores for The Godfather Part 2. I think you went first last time, so I'll go ahead and go first here. And I think that the second film is one of the finest sequels of all time. I think that it is a worthy successor to the first, which in the last video I did call an American masterpiece. I do think that the pacing is really the only problem with this one. It does weigh it down just a little bit. Not enough to ruin or to make the movie seem any less than what it is, but just enough that it definitely feels a little bit more like a chore to watch this one than it does the first movie. But I still think it's still a fantastic film. These movies are so good for so many reasons, and because of that, I gave it a 98 out of 100. So I did give it a 4.5 stars out of 5 for me.
Nice. Yeah, so I agree with you with the pacing issue. Just in the first part of it, everything else was going really smoothly, and I enjoyed the last part of the movie. I did also think that 3 hours maybe could have been cut in some way. I don't know where. It's not like I'm complaining it was 3 hours and 20 minutes, but I feel like it didn't grab my attention right away for those 3 hours and 20
Sure.
minutes. And that's what The Godfather did. It grabbed me and didn't let go until the movie was over. So that's why I like the first one better. I gave it 4 stars out of 5 stars, and I gave it an 89 out of 100. Still, really good sequel. Not complaining about it at all. Why is everybody saying this is the best sequel? Blah blah blah. It's a really good sequel. I just prefer the first one a lot better.
Yeah, it's one of those things where you can see what people say, right? Like,
Oh yeah,
you can tell, but it just, on the first viewing, didn't quite land perfectly for you. It's
Yes.
like getting a silver medal instead of a gold medal at the Olympics.
Yeah.
Like it's that couple point difference.
Yeah, exactly.
But, anyhow, so the question now falls to you. What do you think of The Godfather Part 2? Do you think that we're both wrong and it's a perfect movie and it is the best sequel of all time? Or do you think that it's one of the worst? Who knows? We'd love to hear what you have to say down in the comment section down below. But remember to be polite to one another and respect one another, because that honking alarm in the background might be your car that they keyed. Who knows? But next week, super excited, we're going to be covering the samurai epic Seven Samurai, one of the most influential films of all time. Cannot wait to talk about this movie with Kevin. So make sure to watch it before next week so you aren't spoiled. But again, thanks you so much for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the videos. We really love having you here for everything. We do have our live stream that goes live every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And of course, Movie Club goes live every single week at Friday at 4 a.m. So you have it just in time for your morning commute, your journey, your jog, you're flying on the back of an eagle. I don't know. Whatever you do to get to work or wherever you're going in the morning, you'll have us there for it on Fridays.
Yep.
So, but again, thank you so much for watching, and thank you so much for joining us. And until next time, keep those eyes on the screen.